Welcome back, third graders, and welcome to part 2 of our unit on fairy tales. Today we are going to be talking about motivation. Before we get started, I just want to reactivate what we learned last week. Last week we were really thinking about the differences between fairy tales and realistic fiction. And what we learned was, while it's usually a normal person and that person has a regular problem, the setting and the time are different. And we also discovered that magic is always part of the solution to the problem. So this week our focus is going to be on those secondary characters I was talking about in our new fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty. As we know, Aurora is our main character, but there are several secondary characters, and I'm going to be using them this week to help you understand and comprehend on a little bit deeper level. Today we're going to be talking about what motivates a character to do what they do. And our focus question during reading will be, what motivates this character to do what they do? In order to understand this, we need to talk a little bit about motivation, or what it means to be motivated by something. Motivation is simply the reason characters act the way they do and do the things they do. And I'll put this into a little bit easier way for you to understand. When we're in the classroom and the teacher gives you an assignment, you know that you need to get that assignment done before you go to recess. And often you are motivated to complete the assignment or finish it so that you can go out to recess and not be stuck inside during recess finishing the assignment. That's motivation. For you as a student, recess is a motivation sometimes. I also want to remind you that we're activating this big skill of inferring as we do all of our work this week. Inferring, once again, means that we're using clues from the text, or what the author isn't telling us but kind of hinting at, and the schema that you already have, which is your background knowledge, what you already know. When you put those two things together, they become an inference. And I want to remind you that as you're taking notes this week, you always want to cite the text evidence when writing or talking about an inference, so that somebody who might be checking in with you about the book understands where you got your ideas from. So here is my reading log for the week. As you can tell, I have dated it because, again, I want to keep track of my notes and my thinking. I've also written down what our new fairy tale is, which is Sleeping Beauty. And as you know, a lot of fairies don't have any authors. So in this particular thing, I said it was a fairy tale with no author. And I also wrote down my goal to find out what motivates the antagonist. Now, an antagonist is a big word, and antagonist simply means the bad guy. In a book, there are two types of people. There's the protagonist, which is the good guy, and the antagonist, which is the bad guy, or the person that causes the trouble for the protagonist. In this case, our bad guy, or antagonist, is Maleficent. So, as you can see, on the right, I have my reading log, and on the left, I have the book, because I want to show you where I got some of my text evidence. As I was thinking about Maleficent, I started wondering, why is she acting the way that she acts? As you can remember from the book, she is actually very, very angry most of the time. And that got me to thinking about, like, why is she angry? So I wrote that question down as kind of a guiding question to help myself. Why is Maleficent acting the way she acts? And I started looking at all of the pages in the book where Maleficent was so that I could kind of understand or look for clues to help me understand why she was the way she was. And I wrote down that she's acting angry and mean. And on this particular page, I found some text evidence right here where it says, Maleficent was furious. And I went ahead and kind of started thinking a little bit deeper about that. And I wrote, I think she's acting furious because she wasn't invited to the feast. And then I activated my own schema and I thought, I can imagine being upset if I hadn't been invited to a party where all my other friends had been invited. Did you see how I used some of that text evidence and then I paired it with my schema to kind of help me understand why Maleficent was angry? Here on the next page, I again used two other places in the book to help me understand why Maleficent was acting the way she was acting, or what was motivating her to be so angry. I wrote that she was also very cruel. The text says she forced Aurora to touch the spindle. And I'm sure Aurora was scared because Maleficent was making her touch something she didn't want to touch. And again, I don't know that Aurora was scared, but I was making that inference because I know that if somebody evil was trying to make me do something, I would be scared. I also noticed that Maleficent gets so angry or in a rage, as the text says, that she becomes an evil dragon, right here on this page. All of these pieces, these inferences that I've made, along with my text evidence, made me really think about what's motivating Maleficent to be the way she is. Why is she so angry? And this is what I came up with. All of her actions make me think she is motivated by her anger over not being invited to the party. So third graders, you are going to try this out yourself. As always, you are going to set a goal for yourself while you're reading your fairy tale. And today it sounds something like this. I will read and pay attention to the character's actions and what they do. I will make an inference about why my character is acting the way they do. I will make an inference about what the character's motivation is. And then, of course, you're going to take notes on your thinking. And by the way, third graders, I have to say, I've really been enjoying seeing the pictures of your notebooks and your thinking. So continue to do that. So here are what you could be writing about in your reading journal today. The character is doing this, and I think the character is doing this because. The character is acting like this, and I think the character is acting like this because. I think that the character is motivated by this because. So those are some sentence frames that you could use as you are working in your reading journal this week. All right, third graders, we will see you tomorrow.